Hello everyone, and welcome to a note on one of the Hikvision turbo cameras. Recently we did talk about the turbo codes and how it works, and today I just want to look more specifically at the ColorVu camera. And this will be found by looking at the code structure again, and it ends with an FT, if you can remember when we discussed that. And really the basic premise behind the ColorVu camera is that I'd like to have images in dark areas, in darkness. I want color images, not just normal black and white monochrome images. So it's great for outdoors, warehouses, and that's really the meaning behind the ColorVu term and the ColorVu camera. So if you see on the slide over there, we've got the code with the F has been as a big highlight. And that's where we're going to be looking at those cameras with the FT, and it comes in two versions, DFT, which is the 2 megapixel, and HFT, the 5 megapixel. But really, before we go too much further, we need to just go back a little bit on light principles and realize that the only reason a camera captures an image is because light is reflected off an object somewhere. So you need to obviously have a light source that shines onto the object so that the light can reflect back. And in order to have colors, we have to have white light shining onto that object so that all colors can be reflected properly. So one of the things you'll notice about the ColorVu cameras is that it does not have an infrared light source, it's got a white light source, because infrared cannot do all the color principles. And so how does this work at the end of the day? How does this camera and a light source give us such a great image? So if I go on to my second slide over here, and we'll have a look at that one. Let's move on. The principle of getting a really great image and color image at night really looks at those two sources over there, light source and the camera design. So we've spoken about a light source. The light source has to be there, and it has to be a white light source so we can reflect all the color spectrum. But I also need to have a camera that is able to work quite well in dark environments, because I do not have the greatest amount of white light in dark environments. So inside the ColorVu cameras, we've got a couple of special things that have been done. One of them is the front lens. It's a very low f-stop ratio, so it allows a lot of light to get through from the outside through onto the sensor. You've got the white light LED, as it says over there, and then you've also got the sensor chip inside the camera, which is able to grab hold of the light, like it says over there, and use it very well. So those are two principles that we need to look at with the Hikvision ColorVu cameras, just to make sure that your images are working properly. And then we look at the different kinds of cameras now. And before we even do that, I suppose, with the question is, why do I want to have color at night? Well, there are a lot of reasons, and particularly if you look down at something like branding. So my second image over here shows what the difference between color and monochrome would be. You will be able to so much quicker and faster recognize an object because you can see it properly in the colors that you recognize are new. So then why do we need it? That explains why. The first camera now we're going to look at is the DFT, or the 2 megapixel. That's from the range over here. 10 DFT. The 10 could be different codes, but the DFT identifies as 2 megapixel ColorVu. Quite a great little camera over there, and 20 meters white light, wide dynamic range, true wide dynamic range. So let's look at some of the specs over there. The low light response, minimum illumination, 0.0005 lux. So that's pretty low compared to all the other Hikvision cameras. So you start to understand how great this one is in their range. 130 dBs wide dynamic range. Now that is the ability of a camera to be able to see an image that's got a bright and darkness at the same time. So if I went backwards slightly to that first image over here, you'll see the monochrome. There's a lot of dark areas you can't see, but with the ColorVu camera, I can see those fridges in the back over there and the stuff on the left-hand side. And that's wide dynamic range. Gives me the ability to see the bright and dark areas at the same time. The camera handles that for me. Other interesting things, 4 programmable privacy masks and programmable motion areas. The privacy masks are there to hide details of the picture that you don't want to see. So privacy zones, somebody's window, and the programmable areas for motion detection are just those areas that I can set up that if motion happens in it, I can then trigger as some kind of an alarm response. Other great things over there, the mirror mode and the smart light mode in the bottom over there. Mirror mode just says that I can flip my image horizontally or vertically, or I could just do both. And smart light is the ability of the white light LED to balance itself out so you don't have overexposure inside the image. Here's the 5 megapixel. You'll see the same code, but it's just HFT this time. 10 HFT, 5 megapixel, full-time color camera, full-time color camera. Very much a similar kind of settings and features that the 2 megapixel had, but beware of the frame rate. At 5 megapixels, it's only 20 frames a second. And a great feature that you got in it is right here, you'll see at the bottom, HLS. Now, HLS is the highlight suppression. And the easiest way to explain that is when a car drives up at nighttime, those bright headlights are very bright. And what the camera does is now it's able to invert those very brightness into total darkness. So basically, it swaps the bright headlights into black. So it stops any kinds of blurring over there. And in order to be able to do all those kinds of settings, you obviously have to communicate with the camera somehow, because these settings exist in the camera and not in the recorder. So we have something called UTC, which is up the coax, and it's where your information, your configuration information goes up that same video coax. So the coax has two purposes: send video down to the recorder, but the recorder can send information up to the camera, and that's UTC. So we can do all those settings. And how do I see those settings? The camera itself does those settings and does it as an overlay on the video that you're busy watching, so you can see what you're doing. And then ultimately, where am I going to use this camera? Where am I going to use it? That's the question that always comes up. And anything to do in general, I suppose, where you want to have color in darkness, a warehouse, or more specifically, when I start to look in the directions of product branding and logos. Logos and product branding have got very specific colors. And for marketing purposes and advertising purposes, you want that kind of stuff to come through. So having a shelf over here in monochrome is not going to really help you much for that very fast, quick identification of something. People don't always have to be able to read, but they can see, they can recognize the colors, especially if it's a worldwide image, worldwide recognized image. So marketing, advertising, we've seen on the roadshow that Hikvision did, there was a couple of really great pictures, and you can see this stuff in great detail. But when we start talking about recognizing the object from the colors, you know, I can look at towards the crime, maybe statistics as well, and say, if there was a car that was involved in a theft or a hit and run, if I knew the color of the car, especially at nighttime, it would help me to eliminate a lot of stuff that I don't need to know. So the ability to know the color and make of a car does take me a lot further forward in terms of getting searching done. So I hope that is just a little bit better understanding of the DFT or ColorVu cameras, or the HFT and ColorVu cameras. And definitely, if you have any kinds of questions, give us a shout, ask your branch. And until later, thank you for watching.